First up, a wave of change may be coming for workers and businesses in Massachusetts. Today, the House voted to advance legislation known as the Grand Bargain that deals with wages, paid leave, and sales tax issues that were headed to the November ballot. The Grand Bargain is set to raise the minimum wage from $11 to $15 per hour over time, establish paid medical and family leave, and make the annual sales tax holiday weekend a permanent fixture in the calendar. It would also phase out time-and-a-half pay on Sundays and holidays, a point of contention for labor advocates. The goal was to avoid a costly fight on the November ballot between competing proposals, one of which would have lowered the sales tax to 5%, but is being withdrawn as part of the deal. It would have cost the state more than $1 billion a year. Governor Charlie Baker said it was the right move.
As I've said for quite a while now, my hope was that people would be able to work their way through this as part of the legislative process, and I think overall this is good news.
But while Beacon Hill seems to have dodged a couple of ballot question bullets, they got a gut check when the Supreme Judicial Court ruled this week against the proposed millionaires tax, which would have raised $2 billion a year, allowing a tax-phobic governor and legislature a way to invest in a ailing MBTA and underfunded schools. So, in an election year where voters are being promised expensive fixes and new initiatives, will taxes be at the center of fall campaigns? Joining me are Boston Globe columnist and GBH contributor Shirley Leung. Hello, Shirley. Nice to see you. Chair of the Massachusetts Republican Party. I haven't seen you in so long. I forgot who you were. Kirsten Hughes. Kirsten, it's great to see you. And House Chair of the Committee on Transportation, Democratic State Representative William Straus from Mattapoisett. Representative, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
66% of the people in the Mass Inc. BUR poll the other day said they supported the millionaires tax. SJC knocks it off. Would have been $1 billion a year for transportation and education. People on my radio and television show have spent $1 billion a year on transportation 10 times over. It is now no longer a possibility. The governor says he has current tools for funding that are pretty good. Is he right?
Well, pretty good is probably as strong as you could say. I remember for the last decade, a number that should trouble everyone is we continue to still underfund transportation in this state to about a tune of $1 billion a year.
That's with building nothing new. No north-south rail, no southern coast thing or whatever that thing is called.
Green line extension,
none
red, blue, all color combinations.
Just to fix what ails what we got.
We're underfunding $1 billion, and I know the public doesn't accept that. They don't want that. But then, on the other hand, the price is where do you get the money? Well,
that's the topic tonight. And here's my thesis about the governor, who is a Republican, as you probably know, that he was going to oppose, ultimately, if the SJC had ruled otherwise, the millionaire ballot question, and would have got down on his knees every night and prayed that it passed, that voters would adopt $2 billion a year in taxes so that he could spend it but maintain his no-tax pledge. I'm right, aren't I?
No, I don't think that's the case. Look, I think the governor let the process play out, so I think that that was a good move on his part.
Do we need new money?
We agree that these situations need to be worked on, transportation and education.
Do we have enough money for transportation?
I think the governor has done an amazing job in proposing $8 billion in capital improvement plans in the T. He's done historic levels of funding for public schools. Are we all the way there yet? No, maybe
Do you know that
not.
almost every single line of the T was broken down on the same day the other day? And a story, speaking of education, the Globe several weeks ago, Brockton spends $1.28 per student for classroom supplies. Weston spends $275 a year. Is that a system that is adequately funded?
Well, I think there are also savings that could be made in different areas of state government that the governor has proposed to the legislature. They have failed to take action on.
Well, we have a legislator here. We'll find in a minute. You wrote a column with millionaires tax off the ballot. How else do we pay for transportation and education? That's exactly my question, actually. And you had at least part of an answer. Some regional tax initiative.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Regional ballot initiatives. It's I actually when you look at major public transit projects that have been done across the country over the last decade, whether it's LA or Seattle, Denver, all funded through what they call RBIs. And basically, a group of communities can band together and decide on a local assessment and raise money. And they wouldn't pay for the entire project, but basically you could decide, let's say you're North Shore, a group of North Shore communities can pay for an expanded ferry service to Boston.
Legislature would have to authorize that, though.
Bill Straus, who could answer a question.
Oh, wait, no,
you need a bill. You need a bill, of course.
We do. You would need that.
Would it happen?
Well, at this point, I'd say no, because the Senate turned it down during their budget debate recently. The issue with the regional ballot initiatives is it's kind of like an extended or combined Prop 2.5 override. Yeah. And there's an equity issue here, and I've made this clear, my views to the advocates. Areas like I represent part of New Bedford, they don't have the resources to do some of these taxes.
Stop it.
Wellesley will.
Exactly. And isn't that the basic flaw? What you didn't address in your column is if you're in wealthy areas, you're perfectly fine. And if you're like in southeastern Mass, where the need is great, you're not going to be able to afford it.
I think about L.A. County, Beverly Hills, very poor, right? Poor cities, rich cities. They did it. I mean, they
Where's the Beverly Hills in southeastern Massachusetts?
But they did it. If you can make the case for it, I mean, L.A. will have 15 new rail lines over, $120 billion over the next 40 years. That will be a city transformed.
You said, I put words in your mouth, Kirsten, but I will, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that essentially with creative work and reform, we have enough money. Well, the governor said at the Republican convention, which you're in charge of, we don't even need as much money as we currently have. He said we could live with a reduction. In fact, he supported some reduction in the sales tax. He didn't say he supported the ballot question. He wasn't sure. But so do you, as the Republican Party, believe that with even fewer dollars than we currently have, everything would be fine for the people of Massachusetts? I mean, that seems to be what the position is, no?
Look, I think that we are clearly against any type of tax increase. I think we're also in favor of taking a look at some of these areas where the legislature could act on Governor Baker's proposals to cut spending and to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And I
we've
think,
heard that for like 100 years from Democrats and Republicans.
But listen, the important thing to note here, and I know Rep. Straus is here, but, is that legislators, the first thing they did after being elected was to give themselves a pay raise. If they're so concerned about underfunded schools and transportation, maybe they shouldn't have given themselves a pay raise.
Before you answer that, can you first say, you don't have a candidate yet on the Democratic side, even though you will support the Democrat. Jay Gonzalez and Bob Massey were here right before the Democratic convention. And here's a little discussion we had vis-a-vis the millionaires tax, which they both supported at the time. Here's a conversation I had with Jay Gonzalez, who won the convention the week or two ago. Here it is.
But we will need new revenue, and it's why I support the millionaires tax. I think it's the fairest, most meaningful way to generate new revenue.
And if it turns out either the SJC says it's unconstitutional or the voters reject it, where do you get the money from?
Then I will propose some other progressive way to raise taxes to pay for these important investments.
Like what?
Look,
what? What are they?
I haven't come up with a detailed plan, but I will. And it will be progressive.
He has no idea. And with all due respect to Jay Gonzalez, they have no idea how to raise money in a so-called progressive way. The fact that we have a flat tax constitutionally, that was the whole purpose of reason for the millionaires tax, right?
I didn't want to leave the
I know, but answer my question first, and then go ahead.
I know that's advisable. But
quickly, respond to that.
We've done reform. When the governor proposed we reformed the T with the control board, we've done that. We've done all those reform things. We need the money.
So you're going to raise taxes? Your leader, the Speaker of the House, has been an ally of the governor's on a no-tax stance. Stan Rosenberg, long gone, was the guy who was willing to raise taxes.
Well, that was absolutely what was promised to the public this term. I think next term, all issues in terms of revenue, call them taxes, have to be on the table in terms of our transportation system and the case made to the public.
Do you think that, I mean, the business people you talk to every day, they want better schools. I assume Jeff Bezos wants better schools if he's going to move 50,000 people here. They want a better infrastructure. They want him to be able to spend money. Where are they on all this stuff?
No, I'm reporting my last column. I was surprised. I was struck by how the business leaders are ready to get behind, they want more money for transportation. They want better schools.
Does that mean a tax increase?
And I think that we'll get behind something if it means meaningful progress in terms of funding transportation.
If business provided the cover, would the governor of the Commonwealth say, if assuming he's reelected, business leaders have spoken, the people have spoken, they want better roads, they want a better T, they want better and improved schools, I'll support some tax increases to ensure that those things happen. Would he do that?
I think we'd have to wait and see what
but it's not impossible?
took place. I can't answer for him. I can't speak for him, but I think we'd have to see what that looked like in a few.
Do you
months.
think? Do you really believe your colleagues will sort of man and woman up here? I mean, gambling seems to be what people on Beacon Hill like. I don't mean to be pointing just to you, because that's not taxes. They love the millionaires tax because they didn't have to raise taxes. Will they have the courage to do the right thing here?
I think there's precedent in terms of transportation, where the money goes into the Transportation Trust Fund, and people know that the money that's being asked from them is dedicated under the state constitution into the trust fund for what they need. And they need it because, not just because people want to build things, but because the communities that are developing and the public wants to exist need transportation.
Last question. It seems to me the Democrats are hurt by this grand deal. Millionaires tax drawing progressives off the ballot. Minimum wage drawing progressives off the ballot. Paid family and medical leave off the ballot. I would assume that means fewer people who might not be voting otherwise, particularly if Elizabeth Warren has a big lead in the polls, may not even go to vote. Isn't that a possible outcome?
That is a possible outcome, though I think if the grand bargain holds, I think it is a fair deal. And so I think ultimately it will be a fair deal for workers. It's not perfect, but you have one of the strongest paid family leave programs in the country. You'll get to minimum wage at $15, 5 years, which seems reasonable for businesses and good for workers as well.
Well, you know what some president said, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You've heard that? Nice to see you, Shirley. Kirsten, it's great to see you again. Representative, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.